Midnight Madness.
Yeah, we are burning the midnight oil, so to speak. And we're doing this episode because I am taking off tomorrow.
Midnight Madness.
Yeah, we are. What was that?
Oh, this little cut in from our friend at YouTube.
Oh, sweet.
It's UFO.
I'm leaving tomorrow for Nashville, Tennessee. We have a tournament. One of my 17U team, great group of kids, which we'll talk a little bit about as this episode will call for it.
But we want to try to do this more often, right? Is that our kind of?
Yeah, for sure. But this is Approved It Live, and so we talk a lot about. We talk a lot about things that we see wrong. We do talk a lot, but we talk a lot about things that are clearly wrong in the sport. Bad mechanics, bad teaching, injured players, sort of, veiled type of philosophies like pitch counts, things that, are creating, we're not, in our opinion, false sense of safety and security, etc. So anyway, we thought that it'd be a good idea to have an episode or several episodes where we talk about what we are doing to fix it. And, and not that to say that, we're getting it right 100% time, but it's certainly not for lack of effort. And, but we do have lots of success stories. So we think we should talk a little bit about those. So without further ado, my co-host here, Dr. Kevin McGovern from Perfect Motion Sports Therapy. We are Sans producer, Ryan Gagney, tonight. He's an early to bed. He's probably been in bed for 3 hours so far now. So he's a non-hacker. Can't take it.
Can't say it.
So it's just me and Kev tonight. So one of the things, Kev, you can kind of kick it off. We have a listener that is out in California.
NorCal. I think that's the lingo. Like that would be.
Oh, NorCal. Yeah.
North and
opposite of SoCal. Yeah.
San Francisco area. Yep.
Makes sense. And he had some comments based on our last episode. He's apparently enjoyed it, is what he said, and thought it was informative, and had some questions about it, had some comments about it. So we were going to sort of kick it off there, talk about that, and then we'll get into our Proved It Live. So Kev, can you give us some info? What was his take on the
our
last
listener,
episode?
we'll call him Dr. Ed. He is a retired chiropractor out there, and he's been following us. And he and I had a conversation a couple of weeks ago. Mike, you remember he was the question of the week who asked about the bat handles,
right? The
axe, and yep. So, and he's kind of what we want is our kind of avatar listener, for lack of a better terminology. Someone who's trying to get as much information as they can to help. Essentially his grandson, his family member. So, he really kind of took back to the word again, avatar, about pitching mechanics. We had talked last show about, golf's avatar is essentially Byron Nelson. His swing path is used to test all of the clubs. They've got a machine that does that. But we really there's really not one out there for baseball. And no one really discusses who the best mechanical pitcher is. That's just not discussed, and the people
the mechanics aren't discussed.
Right. So he went through a bunch of people, we had mentioned Rivera, and we had mentioned Clemens and Holiday, and he and I had spoken about, my thoughts about, throwing with gravity, unhooking your back leg, that you're not dragging it. It's not attached to the mound. And, like I said, we don't necessarily have it right, but I don't think anyone has it right. If they did, we wouldn't have all these injuries.
Right.
So he went through. He went Glavine, Koufax, Carlton, John Lester, and when he was sending these all, I'm like, well, and he kind of backed me into this idea that this one's good with this one's good with that. That maybe our avatar truly is like it is an avatar. We've got pieces from everybody, who does arm path right, who does, who loads right, who turns their core, but who finishes in a better position. And maybe we need to kind of take the show and build an avatar, and take less, if people want to obviously send in what they think, and we can kind of come up with a prototypical avatar.
It's great that you said that, because I know when you've asked me before, you said, so hey, who's the guy you emulate, right? The ideal swing with the kids, and you say it's Barry Bonds, right? And I go,
Mhm.
well, actually, it's not. It's Michael Brantley from the Houston
Oh,
Astros,
right.
right? And so because and we're talking about hitting here for a second, just as an example, because Michael Brantley has a nearly flawless swing. He uses his lower half. He
So
doesn't move his hands to contact. Yep.
being, as you know, a world class wiffle ball player, what is flawless? So define flawless for me as far as a swing. Like what
Sure.
you say flawless, what does that mean?
So first of all, like we'll start with posture, which is what we always look at in a hitter, right? So what's their posture look like? Are they in an athletic position? Are their hips back and their butt down and allowing the knees to bend over their feet, over the middle of their feet? Or are they bending their knees forward as they've been told since they were little league? Are their feet wider than shoulder width?
So if we're
Basic
building
stuff.
a baseball avatar, our first thing for you is we're looking at posture, and that would be
Posture.
your first. And he's at 10 out of 10, right?
10 out of 10.
Okay.
And then does he maintain posture on his load phase? And so if these would be two legs here, okay, back leg, front leg, he's a lefty. When he loads this one, does this back leg straighten up and get over his foot, center of his foot, or does it stay here and resist the pressure of that load like a kickstand would do on a bike?
And you want him to resist, right? Because you
Correct.
you don't want head movement. You want him to just. It's almost like doing a deeper squat, like everything stays level.
Yes, and you want the resistance to that pressure, and this is my non-medical background term for it, but I call it a negative load.
Yeah, and that's and we would call it potential energy. Taking the slingshot back, loading that hamstring, that back, where your body wants to like, no, get off, and that's where essentially that spring or that resistance or that power initially comes from.
And that's exactly what we're trying to get. And you only get that if the back knee stays inside the foot at that, what is it, 25-degree angle, maybe whatever, somewhere in that range, 25, 30 degrees. And so the front hip turns in. And the way that we would describe it to a hitter, we would say, we want you to sort of show your back pocket. So if you're ready, I want to show my left back pocket to the pitcher as I load into my, and also as I,
and when you do that, nothing else moves. The head still stays there, right? So we don't.
That's it. The head moves, and also the front shoulder doesn't turn in. The hips turn in independently of the shoulders. You could have a little front shoulder rotation, but you don't want a lot because now you're just you're taking your bat further away from the contact area, and you have to travel farther. So you want your upper body to stay. So we'll get to that point, but this is how we would break it down.
So just that, you probably have 5 or 6 checkpoints.
Huge. Yep.
And when I teach pitching, I'm like, look, you want to be an airline pilot. Want to check this, check that, check this, check this, check this, check this.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. And that's it. And that's a good way to look at it. And they are checkpoints, and those are exactly, that's how we do it. So I'm looking at a video. I go check, 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 check. Oh, stop. Right. And so, and there's a lot that goes on, and people don't realize how important this stuff is because these seem like minor things. Like what? My knee's moving like that far. It's a big deal. It's, it's posturally a big deal.
Oh.
It's the recruitment of the right muscles that are getting called into action to move. It's what we need to do to avoid compensatory motion, to avoid other, body parts going out of sync and out of, sequence. And so, and what
I'll let you steal this from me, right?
Yeah.
When doing that, I'm like, look, if you're a sharpshooter and you move right here, you moved your gun 1 millimeter to the right, you're missing your target by 500 yards.
Yep.
A mile down the street.
Absolutely.
Same thing. So just those little things.
They're huge. They're huge. The last part with the lower half is that the hips are sitting back a little bit. So you basically kind of make sure your butt stays back as you're loading. And your butt doesn't come up and your belly button doesn't come forward and all that. And you're keeping and the way that we do it, Kevin, is we tell a young hitter to pretend their butt's up against the wall, and they're going to keep it and they're going to press into that wall a little bit as they start to load their front hip, and they sit their hip back. And then they're just going to land back to center balance. And then they're going to
unload. So for all of this, Brantley is he's perfect.
He's the guy. And you can even see he gets his hips back even more as he's loading. It's really interesting. And sometimes he'll do it after foot plant. His hips sit back and then he rotates. Eye level stays the same, everything. But when you're talking about that postural stuff, where his hands are at load phase, right? Perfect launch position, outside the shoulder, close to the body, right? And, top of the chest. and how his hands do not move all the way to the ball. It's all lower half. And when he gets to the ball, his hand path is all through contact. His bat's in the zone for a really long time. He's and again, I don't like to use the word flawless because he's not really flawless, but he's as close as you're going to see for a major league hitter. Other guys that would use that the kids don't know about, sadly, today are JD Drew. He had a phenomenal swing. St. Louis, big St. Louis Cardinal.
But at least there's someone to compare standard deviations away from.
That's right.
This is good. You're 3 away from that, and the other side 2 away from that. Whereas in pitching, we don't have an agreed upon person.
Yeah. Well, and let me just throw this out there too before we get into the pitching. You'll see very, very successful hitters who most of them will have the postural things down, the things that I just talked about in terms of hitting. You'll have that down, but a lot of them, their hand path won't be great. They might leak out a little bit. They might roll over a little bit early, like a Mookie Betts. But these guys are superior athletes, and some of them have better hand-eye coordination. And it's, again, not really hand-eye, it's hand-eye plus 27 inches, but they have that barrel relationship better than other people. And so they don't need as big a window to hit the ball. They succeed with a smaller window. But the reason why we use a guy like Brantley is because I think if Brantley weren't so mechanically sound, he's maybe not even in the big leagues, let alone, a successful player in the big league.
Oh, okay. So his mechanics get him to where he's at, not necessarily his raw talent.
Correct. Good. Yep. I think there's lots of guys like that. So that's our avatar.
Who turns the best? Who clears their hips or clears their belly button who gets out there? Obviously Bonds
probably. Yeah. Bonds had the fastest hips,
So those are the boom. Right.
Yep. Super fast. I actually have a player now who I would put up against 70% of the big leaguers out there. He turns his hip so fast.
And then actually your high school kid who might get drafted in the first round.
Yep. His name is Jackson. He just went to the MLB Combine and did amazingly well. In fact, he was second in overall in exit velocity at 107 miles an hour, and he's super fast. If I were to pick one from the big league, what immediately came to mind was a Jose Altuve. Has
is that with or after trash can or a combination? It doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter. His hips are still so super fast. He's obviously
they have to be to generate power at someone who's like 5. What was he? 5'5", 5'6"?
Yeah, he's probably not bigger than 5'6". And I don't know what he's listed at, but that's reality.
6'2".
Right. Yep. No, he's one. Bryce Harper actually had really fast hips, but there's a guy who. And I saw this earlier on in his big league career. His swing to me was more mechanically sound when he was like 16, 17, when he was like this young phenom that you were seeing on Twitter and everything. But he's just another one. But there's lots of guys, and you have to have really fast hips, and that's what's going to make you an exceptional hitter, right? So you can create, and we create hitters. We always say all the time, this is a sport you can learn to be good at. But what's going to take you far? What makes like a D3 level player versus a D1 with mechanically sound mechanics? Well, it's going to be who has the better fast twitch, right? Who has the other tools to go along with that? Who can throw? Who can run? Who can catch? Etc.
Gotcha. All right, so we've talked about this pitching thing, and we love to talk about major leaguers, which is great, but major leaguers represents what? 0.0, 0.0,
Yeah.
So what you evaluate players constantly. What would let's look at the most difficult person because of puberty and how it's probably that 13-and-a-half-year-old kid, right? That's the kid who's just 12 to 14 in that mix that has gone maybe from 5'1" to 6 feet, who's constantly growing. So that person steps in your facility and wants to be a pitcher. What are you looking for mechanic wise? Just as a, hey, this kid is a yay, a nay, he needs work. What are the 3 or 4 things that you would look at?
That's an interesting question. It's a very
if we're going to let's build a 13-year-old avatar, right?
And I think it's an interesting question. It's an interesting question because I think this is where we get into people are looking at way different things. I think this is let me explain what I think happens.
Okay.
Generally speaking in baseball, and then I'll explain what we would do. People are going to want to watch what's his post leg look like. Same thing. And the better pitching coaches will start off with posture. At leg lift, is he keeping his hips back or is he bending his knee forward? Is he turning his front hip in? Are his hands quiet? All those sorts of things. And then when he drops his front foot, is his stride on line? Is he kicking straight out or is he coming down and out? Is he staying in line with the target? All those things. And then when he starts to throw, they'll maybe look at his hip to shoulder separation and his front side, make sure he's flying open.
So basically there's a ton of stuff, right?
Ton of stuff. But here's the thing. I wouldn't look at, if we have a 13-year-old kid, I think that's a good age. The first thing I'm going to look at is I'm not going to ask him to get on the mound. I'm going to ask him just to play catch with me, and I'll watch his arm. And I'm going to watch his arm path.
So you're big on, and then you mentioned like you're big on arm path and all that kind of stuff. As am I. I mean, I think
it's
huge.
It's the thing. I don't have the funds of ASMI and these other bigger,
yes, you do. Back in there, I see it. You got your paper route money you have from a kid. You still have. Yeah.
I was able to buy a whiteboard.
Yeah. Exactly. Which we never use.
I know. It said cookie cutter for 2 episodes. Actually, I was on it until the last one. We don't have the kind of research money, but I've been also researching this going back 20 years now. I've been paying attention to throwing mechanics, and I can tell you one thing, Kevin, that we see, me and you, and this is one of the things we've always really jived on, was we can see when guys are going to get hurt. There are certain parts of an arm path, what the arm's doing, that are related. Now, again, correlation does not equal causation. I understand, but it's either the biggest coincidence in the world, or arm path has a major role to play in arm injuries and throwing. And so that's why we look at it first. And I want to see a lot of things. Probably you want to see, you want to see the shoulders staying down, shoulders, scapular depression. I want to take it further. So I want to see the arm in front of the body. And using that wall scenario, like almost as if a wall behind me, and I can't come back and hit that wall. I'm going to keep the arm in front, and as I turn, and let the arm only move forward and down. So that would be the first thing. And I can tell you, sadly, I don't think we've had one kid that's ever had solid arm path coming in the door.
Yeah, I mean, when I look at when I tell kids who come in for pitching evaluations, like, look, I'm sure you do 100 things right. My job, unfortunately, is to pick out all the things that you do wrong, because all the things that you do wrong could add up to something that hurts you. And that's, our main goal is not, certainly for me, it is arm path, which is a combination, the shoulder scapular complex is shrugging, a lack of, trunk rotation, which lets that arm lag. I mean, there's people that say there's no, whatever, that the arm is back here and you're over there is not good. But we need lag, because that's how we generate power in the golf swing. That's how we generate power with the baseball swing, is that essentially our core has rotated and we've kept our hands back, except we have at the end of that a golf club, a tennis racket, a baseball bat to do the work. When we do that pitching, there's nothing to do the work except some small tendons in your elbow, which take that torque.
Yeah, it's organic material. You don't want that.
Yeah,
and I think that's part of why we see what we see, is because there's so much out there talking about that, saying, "Hey guys, you want to throw really hard? You got to really get your arm back, throw your body forward, let that arm really whip around." And I guess in theory it makes sense in terms of velocity,
and it probably works as far as velocity, but
to a degree.
The egg timer is flipped up, and the pitch timer, like how many more of these pitches do we have left?
Right. That's what I said, to a degree, because how hard are you going to throw with the torn UCL? How hard are you going to throw with the torn rotator cuff? How hard are you going to throw with the torn labrum? And so, and I can tell you there's exceptions, and this is when we talk about like what we do in terms of corrective stuff. Roger Clemens didn't do that. And so, and just to be clear, last week when we were talking about Roger Clemens, for at least for me, I speak for myself, I was talking purely about arm path as someone tried to.
And his arm path is great.
Great arm path in front of the body. Never was way back here. Never extended.
Yep.
Was always had a mild, some flexion. Nolan Ryan, same thing. Modern day guy would be Bartolo Colon, who's really short, threw hard, well into his 40s. So there, there's absolutely. I don't think you're sacrificing really any velocity, keeping your arm path shorter. And another example of that, and I know I beat a dead horse with this, and I say it ad nauseum, but NFL quarterbacks, and I'm wearing one. This guy, and
who's that?
He was Drew Bledsoe's backup. I forget his name.
Oh yeah. No, actually, he was Drew Henson's backup.
That too. He was also his backup. But those guys all have short arm paths. You never see quarterbacks rear back, and they throw the balls hard. They got to throw them into tight windows. They got to get them there fast. They throw the balls hard, and they have to throw a bigger throwing workload. So,
I mean, I think it's something that we need to, part of the show is obviously, Mikey and I are looking at, coming up with a course on coaching. This is what this show is all going to evolve into, really just disseminating information, which seems to be lacking out there. I look at these message boards.
Information isn't lacking. Proper information,
right?
Tons of information.
There's tons of stuff out there. People are going to Facebook to ask about, UCL injuries and bruises on their daughter's hip and side from throwing softballs, and I just think that there isn't a source, and some of the sources out there are studies, which are all great, but your average person can't. I mean, Christ, I read some of these studies. I'm like, huh? Like what? Like it's hard. Like I think people just need tangible, workable information that they can use to make a decision on their kid, or make a decision on how to get people better, stuff that they could be able to digest it. And more, to me, when you learn something, you're able to digest it and then explain it to somebody else. And I think that information is not out there, or that in that kind of conduit that you could say something, I can digest it, I can go teach Dr. Ed in Northern California what we're talking about. That I think is, and that's what we're going to try to solve. And it would be a good experiment to come up with an avatar, and the avatar has to be different levels, like you talked about last week. You can't hold a 13-year-old to the same level that you hold John Lester to, of 108 pitches or whatever it is, because that 13-year-old's got a lot more issues than John Lester does as a grown man.
Right.
So maybe there's multiple avatars that we have. We've got a little league avatar, we've got a 14-year-old avatar, and then we've got a high school, and then we've got, an adult. They're all going to have different movements.
But I think the arm path should be.
The arm path, I think, that's pretty much the same. Yeah.
Right.
No, you don't want that arm path, but it's true. It's true.
All about the arm path, in my opinion, because again, now there are different things, and I'd like to go over them. Now first, just in terms of corrective arm path, again, we want to have our kids all thrown with their arm in front of their body. And one of the ways that we do that is we'll put a piece of tape on the turf. We'll have them stand next to the tape, and we'll say, okay, you're in this lane. The ball's in that lane. We're going to keep the ball in that lane the entire time. You're going to step, you're going to turn, ball stays in that lane. I'm turning, the ball still stay in that lane, and I'm throwing, and the arm's only moving forward and down. Sometimes we'll put an L screen behind the kid's back. So that again,
a good one. Yep.
Right. With the sort of the pipe going down the middle. So most of the L screen's back here. And if they go back too far, they feel like they hit the net. So that's one of the big ones that we would use for throwing as well. And because this is so important, Kevin, because, you can't pitch if you can't throw.
Yes.
Right. That's not the same the other way around.
Yes, I'm going to write that down.
Yeah,
of course.
Right, of course. And so that's number one. And number two is the health of that. So now this isn't something they're going to learn right away. And if you were to work with a kid, say even for 6 months, first time you put them out there in a mound for a real live game, you're going to see a lot of those old mechanics come back because it's instinctive, right? And so
that's a good point. You're instinctive. Go ahead, go with that. I'm going to.
So It is instinctive. It's muscle memory. They've made thousands of throws before they ever met me. So you're going to see that. So how we combat that, and because, and I don't want to speak out of both sides of my mouth here, but I'll say this: if we have kids with what we consider to be really true sound throwing mechanics, and their arm is only serving as a conduit of energy and not a conductor, and they're throwing forward and down, they're staying short, we don't care that much about pitch count. We don't.
If you're doing something right and correct.
Yeah, we look at different measures. And I'll tell you one thing that we'll do, and this is something we haven't really talked about on this episode of what we do, because we've talked about the wonky pitch count things, and we use it to a degree, but especially for that kid who's, we're gonna look, we have lots of kids whose arm pats aren't great. That's first and foremost, right? We're working. This is a work in progress. And like I said, it does take time. So what we'll do, Kevin, is we'll have, now the pitch limit varies. Now we take into consideration the time of year, right? So April is going to be lower than May, which is going to be lower than June, which is going to be lower than July. We're going to take the weather, right? Is it 50 degrees or below? Is it 55 degrees or above, etc.? Days of rest, all these things. And we're going to say, okay, every pitcher can go out and throw 7 innings today, even in April. But let's say your inning limit is 10 pitches, right? If you go over that 10, an inning comes off the back end. So now you only get this. You threw 12 pitches in the first inning. Now you're only good for 7 innings today.
So it's a functional
6 innings, right?
Goal-oriented pitch count.
Goal-oriented, and it's a better way to gauge a workload, right? Yeah. You get to you double your innings pitch count, 2 innings come off the back end, and so on and so forth. And again, in that 10 pitches per inning will change from April in May to maybe 14, right? And also, of course, the age, etc. So we're trying to do things. We're trying to use our heads. We're trying to do things that are a better, I don't want to say, a more sensible approach to keeping kids healthy, but also making sure they're out there pitching and we're not over babying them.
So let me throw the hammer at you.
Love hammers.
You have a 9-year-old son, correct? 10.
Just turned 10.
That's right. Turned 10. He was probably throwing a ball since he was probably 6 weeks old. You probably had him out there throwing.
Yeah, sounds about right.
When he picked up a ball for the first time or ever threw it, was he ever in this position?
Nope.
All right. Did he ever reach way back here to throw the ball?
Nope.
No. Because I'm going to tell you, Mike, that and all of those are teaches. They're all taught. You're taught to do this because this is not an instinctual move at all. No way in hell is this an instinctual move. And so is aiming the ball way back. They're coached. That's a coach.
I've seen that one coached. I've seen
you were taught to throw that way incorrectly because instinctually the kid, it might not look, but pick the ball up and go, right? Yeah. And that's how they're going to. The ball is in front of them all the time. Just like if the ball was on the ground, they had to pick it up. They would squat down in a perfect diaper to heel move every single time, straight back, perfectly tipped, because that's how the body is building proper neurological movement sequences. And people are coached out of those movements.
Absolutely.
Just like at first base, the negative step, we're going to go to second, but I'm going to step backwards first. Really? Because when you say dinner, I'm turning that way. I'm going.
Right. Yeah.
I'm not taking a step back to go forward. Right. And a lot of this is bad coaching. It's just because instinctually you're never putting your hands in an inverted W or M or whatever it is. You're just never doing it. It's you're taught this, put this arm up here. So when you say, we made thousands of throws back and forth as kids playing rundown, and never once were we ever in this. It's a teach.
It is a teach. And, you see the feed the dragon, right?
Feed the dragon, yeah.
Don't know what it means, right? Other than you're looking away.
Yeah.
But the T or the scarecrow, whatever.
Yep.
And it's absolutely taught 100%. And so this was sort of the old way. And so newer guys came and taught this, right? And, it's got to be, no, that's stupid. Do it this way.
Or take your elbow and what? What am I doing with this? With this?
Yep. Like you're cracking an egg. I remember this one. You crack an egg.
Yeah.
You open the egg. Open the egg.
Get ready and
yeah.
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 But of course they can't, which I guess this is the purpose of the show. When I ask this 3-letter word, why?
Yeah. I think it's people, number one, they want to, sadly, I think part of it is they just want to come across as they're knowledgeable. They want to, the most innocent of it is that they do want to teach. They want the kids to maybe, if this is something this guy learned later in life and said, well, if I known this, maybe.
Listen, if you're going out there to harm kids, you need to, right. But a lack of again, or knowledge or something, that a tangible piece of information that you're applying wrong or not wanting to learn how to apply it correctly, then I would say that. But no one's going out there, with the intent to.
Nope.
Just, baseball is a sport like religion that has been passed down like the 10 Commandments. Like, okay, here carved out in stone. Here it is, and nothing really changes from there. But now, I think, unfortunately, I've got to mention my Yankees. But the radio announcers are all, for the last 3 weeks, have just been all over the fragility of the baseball player. Like, they do the injury report and they're just like, yeah, someone bent over and now they're out for 6 weeks with a hamstring, and they're doing it tongue in cheek, but it's true.
It's true. It is true. It's the fragility. It's the overinflation of the salaries, right? And that works both ways. If you're a player and you go, hey, look, I can't perform my best if could I play with a broken pinky? Yeah, but I'm not going to play at my best, and I'm up over a contract at the end of the year, and that's going to hurt me financially. So they say I'm not playing. Conversely, these teams that have a gazillion dollars, invested in that guy, hey, we want you at your best. If that means sitting you out for 2 weeks, sit out 2 weeks. I want you at your best. We want to win games with you, right? So it's this, that's a big part of it. But it doesn't answer for the fact that they're getting hurt in the first place. Like, why are they getting, your job is to make sure that you are an elite world-class athlete. You have the resources, you have the money, you have the time to do all that. This isn't the 1940s where you get like great, players like Ted Williams and Joe DiMaggio working jobs in the off season. This is your whole job. Those guys went off and fought wars and came back, hit the ball 480 feet in their first at bat. You could argue generational stuff all day. I get it, but
we're going to circle back. We'll circle back, Saki, to what you said when we talked in the first part about Michael Brantley. I had asked you, I said, you talked about posture, but there were, 12 subheadings in that one posture.
Mm-hmm.
Now these guys are pumping more weight, flipping tires, doing all this stuff. And if you just have one movement that's off somewhere, or one mechanic, and now we add 275 pounds, we add a deadlift of 500, because that's what some of these guys are doing. And we got something off somewhere in that chain, that's gonna lead to injury for sure. There's no doubt.
That's a phenomenal point. That's a great point. And
your body's always going to do what you tell it to do, good thing
or bad.
It's always going to do what you tell it to do, bad thing. Yep.
That's right. Yep. And that's, I say it because it makes me sound smarter, but compensatory motion, right? But it's your body compensating.
Right.
One doesn't fire, another part's going to fire, and it's now you're out of sync, you're out of sequence. So I can tell you that I see a lot, and I don't know when this happened. I do know that it became pretty bad around 2010 to 2012, 2013, but right around that time frame, I saw a deviation. Like, people were going away from body mass. When I say people, I mean like trainers, like strength trainers.
Mm-hmm.
Strength trainers used to be, like obsessed with movement and posture, and hey, no, you're not doing that right. Let's do that again. And hey, let's go to a lower weight. So much so that you would see people get frustrated with like, hey, come on, I'm stronger than this. Like, no, dude, you're doing it wrong. You might be able to put it up, but you're going to hurt yourself. Right. And that went away in large part. Now, I'm not saying that it's not noticed. It's not, but I do know that there's a sense out there from a lot of strength trainers like, well, yeah, would you want the posture to be perfect? Of course. Would you want them to, be able to be in a perfect? Yes, but it's more important if they're not getting there just to get them, moving the weights and getting strong. And I couldn't disagree more.
Yeah, there's definitely been some sort of cave there, but also too, like, so let's go back, let's delve into that. So in 2010, let's say, how many travel ball programs were in Massachusetts?
2008.
Yeah, 2008, 2010, right? Roughly.
Yeah, I don't know, probably 500.
How many are now?
There's over 1,000.
Right. So it's doubled, right? So everyone's doing strength and conditioning. So when I applied to PT school, right, you had like Quinnipiac, Springfield, Northeastern, BU, UConn. Now, like every school, like it has grown, good or bad. There's only so many good instructors around. I mean, it just seems like we go back. The program has
watered down,
cookie cutter. Like, okay, we're going. We're doing the same stuff for back that we did 25 years ago. I mean, there's not. It's been kind of a cookie cutter. Go through the motions. And now, that's definitely one of the reasons, not all the reason. And, and then, just to me, I didn't, miss out on spring break for every year except one to go out and then do nothing with my profession. Like I'm constantly trying to learn and trying to figure things out and question why. And I'm sure other people do that too. So it's just, I don't want my product to look, I'd rather lose somebody like, oh yeah, dude, get down the street. And that's fine. They're going to do it this way. This is how I do it. And maybe now after 27 years, I'm salty. Be like, look, this is the way I do it because I know that it works.
Yeah.
I know you're going to stay safe.
Yep. Well, look, I mean, you knew me when I launched my program, and I had come from working in other programs, and I saw what just giant needs in the baseball community. We were the first, at least around here, to include mandatory strength training in our work. We were the first to include psych training, so mental side of training and sports psych, and
the curriculum, as you like to say.
The curriculum.
It's true.
Yep. And so, it's. And there are at least programs out there that are saying they're doing it, and I think a lot of them are, but not in the same way. They'll at least. But every program now has at least a referral, like, hey, here's the strength guy that we recommend. He's right down the street. Go to him, and you should be lifting weights and doing this, etc. And again, but you just have more and more people doing it. If you don't have someone that you can work, that can work closely with your athletes, where you can communicate with them, it's not going to work as well. And also, just there's so many more athletic trainers out there now, and so it's just like it's like the NHL, right?
Well, I mean, you've got all these like fitness together, CrossFit. You've got these huge these Lifetime Fitness, these huge box gyms. Like there's so there is a lot out there. And again, I go back to I'm a basic guy. 2 reasons to train. I'll hammer it home. 1, most importantly, stay healthy. 2nd, to improve performance. If neither one of those are happening, then you've got to look for something else, right? Because those shouldn't be on the injury list if you're training.
No. And so then it comes down to what? It comes down to results, right?
Yep.
And you should be able to deliver results. And, we talk about this and, how to measure a travel team and looking how their records should improve as they get older, and their kids should, you should see kids going off to college, right? Mm-hmm. Every graduating team, you should be seeing, in my opinion, you should see half that roster going off to play in college at a minimum. Which
I just say, so everyone knows, college, that means Division 3, 2, anywhere in college, yes.
Because again, I'll throw the stat out again. Only between 4 and 6% given on the year. Only 4 to 6% of high school baseball players, not high school students, high school baseball players, go on to play in college in any division. So they're in a very elite class. So if half your roster is going, you're blowing that average out of the water, because those are high school age students. But you should at least
the numbers are that low, huh?
Wow. Yep. And, and so we pride ourselves on sending,
That's
we're
great.
up around 70% most of the time and sometimes higher. And, this team that we're going to Nashville with, everybody on that roster is a college eligible kid. Like they're all good
And
enough to play in college.
you may have some draft babies in that college, in that,
We have
right?
at
At least
least one
one,
being
right?
drafted. Yeah. Yep. And then there's a couple who you might maybe getting drafted out of college in a couple of years. So,
That's phenomenal.
and so that's the idea is like, what's the goal? What's your goal? Coaches out there, is it to elevate your player? It should always be to elevate your player to his or her goals. And, for the kids that we get, baseball and softball, these kids all want to play college ball. They don't want to just play high school ball. They already know they want to play college ball. And that's not a lofty goal because you can get there if you have the right coach that's, and you have the right trainers and you have the right support staff behind you. If everybody's, again, on your team, there's no way you shouldn't get there unless something went tragically wrong.
Well, I mean, I don't know. I mean, we've talked about like Tiger Woods is going to be a professional golfer, whether you coach him or I coach him, right? Being a coach is taking the kid who comes to you, like the kid you're talking about, right?
Yeah.
He came to you as a 12-year-old. You're like, and now this kid's going to get drafted one way or another. He's going to get drafted next month, or he's going to get drafted when he gets in college.
Yeah,
that's coaching, right? To be able to take a kid who's barely JV eligible and get him to play at Brandeis. Get him to a Division III college. Like anyone could take, Roger Clemens and make him against Traverse Tech because he's God gifted. But it's to take the person that doesn't necessarily have all the tools and find what those are and give them workable movements and technology to get them to college. That's coaching.
I agree. But also I think that there's so much out there in the talent pool these days, and these roster spots are so what's the word?
Coveted.
They're precious, right? And so I think that yes, that is true. Now I think pitching's completely different because you get a kid that throws, your kid could walk off the street and throw 96 miles an hour. I mean, that's happened. And people, what the heck? You play baseball?
Right.
Never played. Right. So that guy, a team would take a flyer on that kid like that and go, we'll just teach him the rest. But they're never going to see a swing, even if it looks hard, and go, we'll take a flyer on this kid, teach him. No, you have to be polished. And that's the big difference. And that's the same with recruitment. You see some kids, they get anxious. It's their junior year and they haven't even started their summer yet. And they're freaking out because they're not committed. But, Joey from the other pro, like from his high school team, is committed, or Joey from our older team. It's like, dude, he's a pitcher. He's been throwing 94 since he was a sophomore in high school, but anyway, I don't want to get off track, but the point is, you can learn how to be good at this sport, especially how to hit, especially when it comes to how to hit, how to field, how to run bases the right way, not just speed, but how to run bases. We teach all of that, and you can teach all of that. And Jackson, the kid that's going to be drafted, he wasn't like a bad. He was a good player at 12, but he wasn't anything special. He was actually kind of gangly, and had a strong arm. But what I saw
wasn't what's the kid from the Bad News Bears, the Pike?
Kelly Leak.
He wasn't Kelly Leak, right?
He wasn't Kelly Leak. But one thing I saw was I'm like, all right, this kid has really fast hips.
Right.
He has really fast hips. So I can teach him to use those first and really improve his hand path and his arm path. So his barrels staying in the zone long and his hips turn fast and his barrels in the zone for this much. Good luck, pitchers. And that's where he is now. Now his kid's hitting the ball at 110, 112 miles an hour. He's in at 440 feet in
That's
front
fantastic.
toss.
That's a fantastic success story. Yeah. It really, truly is. Maybe we can have him on the show when he gets drafted.
I was actually just texting him earlier tonight, and he was, he's just at the MLB Combine and said just what a great experience it was. And he was, I think yesterday, I don't know if it was in BP, but he hit one over the batter's eye in center field.
That's fantastic.
Combine. So, and we got, not to be outshadowed, but we've got a bunch of kids that are on his team. He's obviously not traveling with us now. He's got bigger fish to fry at this point, but there's other kids on that team that are, Division I college talents, right. Using that word, Division I skills.
So we got probably, people get tired of listening to us about this time, but we got some homework to do. We're going to try to work on this
Avatar.
We're gonna keep tracking this Avatar and see what comes up out of that, and certainly we'll be working on a coach's educational program, combining what I do and what Mike does to give tangible, usable information to parents and coaches out there, and that's coming down the pipe real soon.
By the way, if you're a parent or a coach and you're listening, reach out to us because we already have the stuff.
Yeah,
it's really just putting it in a bow for you and making it a nice little pretty video. But we have, I mean, I've actually done a couple of coaches certifications with some just local
right.
Yeah,
we're just gonna polish it up.
Yeah.
If you obviously ever want to reach the show, you can email us at info@proveitlive.com. You can drop us a line at our website at proveitlive.com, and you can find us on social media and all that kind of stuff. But thanks for listening. Mike, anything else?
No. Great. I like doing this. I actually kind of like this time frame.
Yeah, it's past our bedtime. It's
we
did this like a marathon. We started on Monday and now we're going to end it on Tuesday.
I like it. Exactly.
All right. Well, hey, everyone. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next week.